How's it going? So today I have a special video for you. I got on a call with our marriage evaluator leader, Justin, and two of our coaches, Tom and Stacy, and we were discussing lots of things. Why your wife waited so long to tell you about being unhappy, how to fix the root issues of the marriage to meet her needs, the type of man we see that always wins his wife back, and the type of man who always loses her, why your wife doesn't notice or care about your changes as much anymore, and so much more. Usually I don't do this, but the conversation was so valuable that I know you will get tons of value from it as well. So I'm gonna share with you the top clips.
Yeah, I wish I had found you 6 months ago or 6 years ago. Maybe you did. What if you would have never clicked on the ad anyway?
Right.
So even if I had put this in front of you 6 months ago, you weren't clicking on it. You weren't going to join this program because in your mind, you didn't see there was a problem. And so it really takes that problem being pushed into what I always call it the blinders. Men have blinders on. It takes it being pushed right in front of your blinders before you're willing to take any action. And that's where you're at today. You can look in the past, but the odds are you weren't ready to make that decision in the past.
So I want to add on to what Justin's saying there, which is men only change from inspiration or desperation. And so many guys, if you watch my videos, but you haven't taken action to set up a call with our team, or you know that you are finally taking action on things, it's because you got to that point of desperation. Regardless, the path always leads to the same nuggets of truth, which help you transform into the better version of yourself. So it's really important to notice that oftentimes when you are in this state of kind of going back and forth, you're seeing these positive wins from her, but you also aren't super happy. Sitting in that land of in between, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's only going to get worse before it gets better unless you do something completely drastically different.
You're going to be shocked when I say this, but we're not actually here to help you save your marriage. We're here to help you become the type of man your wife would want to continue to be married to. But if all I do is give you tips and tricks to get her back into bed, you're then going to revert right back. Consistency builds belief. And I use this example with guys who are in front of us. It's almost like a guy who gets out of jail and he ends up in church because he's on probation. He's on his best behavior. But the moment probation is over, he disappears from the pew. And that's what happens with men. You try to do all the right things now because now you've been put on probation. And the question is, do you have the skill set to keep it going when probation falls off so that you're consistent and she continues to feel it?
Yeah, a lot of guys, not all of them, but a lot of guys, when they first come into the program and they start making these changes, they're like, why isn't my wife not noticing? I am changing. I'm a changed man. It's like, how can you blame her for testing that after years and years? Now she's pulling away. Now you're changing. How can she guarantee it's true? So the mechanism that your wife will use to ensure that those changes are genuine before opening up to you, before giving you another chance, is to test them, is for her to actually get worse, is to not give you that validation you're seeking from these changes, to see, okay, if she doesn't give you the validation and you're still making these changes, okay, maybe they're legit, right? But at first, don't expect it to be automatic. We always tell guys when they first come into the program, look, objects in motion tend to stay in motion unless acted on by an outside force. When you first come into the program, when you first make these changes from my videos and the advice that I give, she's not gonna automatically just stop and change immediately, right? Sometimes it does happen. Sometimes guys will, within 6 to 8 weeks, the wife's like, I just needed to see that you cared, and it works. And they make these drastic changes. And that does happen, but more times than not, she's gonna test those changes when you first make them, as she should.
The thing I always try to tell guys is I ask them a question. Could you say definitively that she would have stepped out had you done the right things? And what I'm trying to do is draw them back and be like, wait a second here. Yeah, at some point there has to be responsibility taken on, I'm not absolving her of the behavior, but I am asking, would that Pandora's box been cracked open had you been doing the things that she needed for the emotional connection to begin with? And so the biggest thing I see with guys that have been separated for a long time, or there is infidelity on the wife's part, is they almost start getting indignant and like, well, I don't know if I want to take her back. And it's like, but you have to realize that you only got to this point because she was questioning if she even wanted to be with you in the first place. And so it's trying to reset them and then trying to get them to understand that even if you and her don't work out, you had better figure something else out, because the next relationship is just as likely to go down this path. And the divorce statistics prove it.
And I get guys who, they've been cheated on, she's seeing another guy. It's so easy for you to say, but look at the things she's doing to me, right? And being a victim, people think it's like this grand, like, oh, woe is me, it's all poor me. No, being a victim, it's so subtle. It's like the devil's in the details. And when you are being a victim, it's just like that little bit of extra, well, if she did that, or if she didn't see this, or, if she just, she. And so many times when we speak with guys, we'll see that like when so much of the conversation is focused on her and not on you, that's where the victim mentality starts to really creep in. So just ask yourself, like what Justin just said, if you weren't doing all these things over the years, would she feel compelled to want to speak to someone else? At the end of the day, if you are a high value man, she's not going to leave you for another person.
I have to say that as a woman, it's just not attractive. Like when a man takes ownership and a man can, lead his own inner world and lead his own, steer his own ship, that is so attractive to a woman. It is not attractive when a man's in victim mindset. In fact, I think it puts women into the mother rather than the lover. You want to mother them
Yes.
that are victims. You don't want to. You don't want to. They're little boys to you.
And that's going to put a button or a whole stamp on this thing is we preach 100% accountability and responsibility because that's what a man does. He says everything that happens to my life, down to the way I feel about things, is my choice. It's my perception, right? I am choosing to do this. I am choosing. Everything that I have in my life is because of me. So everything you have in your life is because of the thoughts, emotions, and actions and decisions you made across your life. Point blank, period. And when you operate from that perspective, that just allows you to have full power over your life. That means you can change it, right? Because otherwise, if you are a victim to your circumstance, then what can you do? Nothing. One of the biggest epiphanies guys have, and it seems so obvious when I say it, but it's like, what kind of man were you when you first met her, when she fell in love with you? What were the things you were doing, right? And I know consistently a large factor of it is so many of the men, they invest so much into the family and right into the kids, into their career, right? They have that provider blueprint, the default blueprint of what a good husband should be. And speaking to what Stacey said, that masculine polarity, leading the relationship, right? Making small decisions, being unreactive, not trying to solve her problems. All of these things that they pretty much naturally did early on in the relationship when they did kind of just give all themselves to her and expect a lot in return. And what happens is that they give away themselves in the process. And so I think a good question, I'm not sure if you ever alluded to that, Justin, but like asking the kind of man that they were in the beginning. And it's like, all right, were you meeting those emotional needs then? What were you doing then that you're not doing now? And a lot of guys, like you said, touching back to the final point is like, we think as men, like, okay, I literally have guys say, Josh, 2 vacations a year. Her sister said that she's crazy to leave me. My mother-in-law said the same thing. Like, I'm a perfect match. Like, why is she leaving me? It must be something wrong with her. It's like you're neglecting to see, like all the death by a thousand cuts of all those little moments that she was calling you while you were at work, and you're just like distracted. Yeah, okay, yeah, oh yeah, whatever. And she knows, she feels that disconnect, and it just compounds over time. And you used to give her that like authentic, raw, just connection, being there with her in the moment early on. And over time, a woman's going to be like, you know what? Like for example, with my parents, the divorce, it's like my mother's father died, right? He passed away. That caused my mom to have an awakening experience, like question her own existence. Like, oh my gosh, like how much time do I have left on this planet? I'm not happy with this man. I haven't been. Okay, I'm going to leave. And that's what happens. I find with a lot of these relationships is like there's an illness, a death in the family, a milestone birthday, a reunion, high school reunion. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I only have like X amount of years left. And so now I'm not happy. I'm going to leave. Right. So there's nothing more to add to that. I mean, that guy knows what he's talking about.
And sides are taken by therapists as well. And I hear guys take it. I experienced that myself. I had a guy tell me yesterday that his wife didn't like what the therapist had to say, so we're not going to another therapist, because the therapist had kind of came to his side and was like, yeah, you need to listen to what your husband's saying. But I see it a lot on the other side as well, to where especially you go to a female therapist, she starts kind of siding with the woman. And at the end of the day, what I ask guys is this: do you want to go in and have to talk about how your mother made you feel and go all the way back to really talking about all these childhood traumas, when at the end of the day, really all I want to know is, what the hell should I do today? What should I do today? What should I do tomorrow? Because that's how we're programmed. I'm not going to walk in. I use an example with these guys like golf. Therapy would kind of be like you coming to me for golf lessons, but the first 5 lessons, I'm just going to ask you why you suck. Let's talk about why your grip is so bad. Let's talk about why the ball position is so bad. Tell me why. How did you get here? Instead of coaching is, I'm looking at it, I'm like, God, your ball position can't be there. We're going to move it. Yeah, this is going to feel weird, but you got to get it ingrained. Then we'll move on to the grip and the next. And it's nothing but action steps, because at the end of the day, what I just need to know is what to do.
And as a therapist myself, like I'm not gonna say that there's no value in understanding your past, understanding how your mom and dad did affect you, because I do that work with my one-on-one clients that I work with. But it's like, are you gonna go to the past when your present is compromised, when there's no future in sight? No, you want to take care of right now. You need a solutions-focused approach, action steps, right? Men, we need that action. Give me the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-step plan to get her to at least go to neutral, to give me a chance. And now, once you kind of stop the fire, right, so to speak, now you can go into the past and understand those where they came from, where those like maladaptive behaviors came from, why you had those emotional responses every time she doesn't text you back, or when she kind of like scowls at you. It's like, oh, that came from my mom, or I don't like conflict because my dad was a very conflictual person. But in the beginning, you want to not really focus on that past stuff, which is what therapy tends to do. As a therapist myself, it's what we would focus on. It's like, okay, come to the session. Here's a whole, document on why, your father is causing you to be with the way you are with your mom, and why your mom's being, why your mom really divorced your dad, and you're afraid that will happen with you and your wife, but you're projecting that because of your own insecurities, blah, 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 blah. That's okay. That's valuable. But first, you want to get yourself out of the crisis mode, which is what we really focus on here. Justin, I know a common, I don't know if you get this on the marriage evaluation calls with the guys, but I know a common one is like, I see this sometimes on YouTube comments where even guys in the program, Josh, I've made the changes. She's just not noticing. So it's like, what's the point? Yeah. What is the response to that? All of you, I'm curious, but Justin, you first, because I know my response to that.
I just used an example, two examples primarily. With my dad being a pastor, we did the example of guys coming to church out of prison is actually a very real example. There was a prison about 30 miles north of us, and guys would get out of jail on probation. They would show up in church. The thing that I tell guys all the time is consistency builds belief. You've been doing this for 8 weeks, but what we talked about was you've been married 13 years doing the wrong thing. How do you think that all of 8 weeks is going to, in her mind, prove that you're consistent enough for her to come back into this and open up emotionally? You have to pay a price, and part of that is ensuring that you're doing the right thing over and over until she actually buys in. Because if you don't, and then you stop doing it, she's immediately going to say, I knew you were manipulating me. So right now you're in full test mode, and consistency is what is going to allow you to do that. And at the end of the day, if they have kids, I use this example, I don't have kids. I have 10 nieces and nephews. But I know from my nieces and nephews, when one of them would go missing, they probably did something wrong. And we'd have to go find them, or my brother's looking, and sure enough, they wrote on the walls of their bedroom or whatever. Now, that kid's only 2 years old, but he knows what the discipline's going to be because he's learned how he gets disciplined. What do you think your wife has learned over 15 years? You taught her who you were. Now suddenly you're acting like a new person. How is she to trust this right now? She has no track record.
And that's the thing, man. Like, even though at the end of the day, you think that you made these changes, if you really believe that, that's great. But if you know it's true, then why would you even have to convince her in the first place? I would say the number one thing that really men need to focus on more, especially the guys coming to the program, I can't speak for every guy that's not in our program, is that patience. And the guys who are veterans in the program, who have helped other guys along the journey, they have recognized that patience is necessary. So many guys are rushing the process. And if you actually look at the feminine to masculine dynamic, when it comes to, let's say, sexuality and sexual arousal, so many men want to get there as soon as possible. And that rushing is a low value behavior, right? A high value apex male, he has that patience and that certainty and that like, cool, I could play this game for as long as I need to because it's fun. I don't need to rush to the end again. And actually, I want to prove my worth to you. And when a guy can do that, man, that she feels that just ease and calm from you, and she responds to that, and she actually gives you more of what you want because of that patience.
So that point about men getting tunnel vision in the now is fascinating. I remember reading something where there were a whole bunch of guys in from the Second World War that had been in a coma for a long time, like we're talking sort of weeks. And then all of a sudden there was this real need for a lot of firefighters to go out and, look, put out all the fire that came from the bombs. And immediately a whole bunch of them just woke up and just attacked that mission. So I would have to put a disclaimer as to like where that I remember reading that distinctly, but to me, it speaks to this sort of inherent way that men can be, where we can be so unbelievably good at crisis management, solve this problem, problem's done, go back into just switch off mode. But what we're really trying to talk about here is that, and this is sort of a conflicting point to my last point about seeing more like a business. That was more from a practical sense, but a relationship isn't a problem to be solved. It's a relating to. And Josh and I were speaking about this not too long ago, but one thing that I really try to do is to flip the script so they get a sense and understanding of what it feels like to be their wives. So if they might come on a coaching call, and they say, hey, Tom, like, I'm really looking forward to working with you. I've loved the course. I say, hey, all good, all good. So what we need to do, I've read your notes. You don't need to talk much anymore. Say this to her. Don't do this. Do this thing over here. Just really focus on that COVID contract, and then, mate, you'll be solved. All good. All right. I've got a bit on, but best of luck with it, man. Awesome. I've solved their problem. That, and we've got that sense of confidence that I can get it done because I've been working with hundreds of guys, but there is no connection between us. That he's going to feel like I don't give a shit about him. He's going to feel unheard, unseen, unappreciated, all those things that she's been saying to him for years and years and years. So there is value in actually getting a felt sense of what it feels like to be dismissed, not because you weren't solving her problems, but you weren't enjoying the relationship, which is something that isn't to be solved. There's no outcome associated with it. It's like climbing a mountain. It's like, hey, I'm going to stand behind this guy because he's going to get me to the top, and I trust that he's going to get me there. But I don't want to stand behind him if I want to enjoy the view, if I want to have a picnic halfway up, if I want to cry because I'm hurting, if I want to get inspired because there's a beautiful tree or an animal or something. You've got to bring some of that into your life and into your relationship as well to just enjoy your life more.
The thing that I'll piggyback on that is, there's a gamut of guys that see how, whether she decided to move out, she said the words, I'm done, or I want a divorce, or she gave the papers, or even there's another guy. Each of those men that come across those scenarios, they can respond differently. Some guys will be like, oh my gosh, she asked for space. It is completely over. She's never done that before. Another guy, let's say his wife has moved out multiple times across their marriage, but they've never fully broken up. And so when she decides to move out again, he's like, this is just a test. And so it's important for you to know that whenever she's taking space, whenever she's pulling away, if your goal is truly to get her back, then you have to see these moments of pulling away as a test, as like, okay, I want him to know how serious I am. I've been in couple sessions where I would then separate the guy and the girl, right? The man and the wife. And I would talk to the wife and I would say, every time you threaten to leave or break up with him, he feels less safe. And she'll say, Josh, I don't actually mean it. I just want him to know how mad I am, how serious I am. And there's no way to let him know how much he hurt me other than to say that. And so you have to know that as a guy, your word is so bond, right? Like when you say something, you mean it. And because logically, why would you say it if you didn't mean it? For a woman, that's not the case, okay? She will say things in the heat of the moment when she's feeling a certain way. And then time goes by and then she didn't mean it anymore, right? And she knows this isn't logical. She knows that there's this part of her. But the thing that I see that guys make mistakes at so much is that they'll say well, Josh, she's never mentioned the divorce word before, so now she's serious. And if you think she's serious, it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you will treat her as if she's actually leaving you. You'll be more insecure. You'll say it's over in your head and then it'll become over. But if you could take those same tests and be like, you know what? I know she still loves me despite what she's showing because I know what we have together is special because I know my own value, which by the way, that's where this all comes from. If you believe that she could leave you, then you don't see the value in yourself. If you're saying, she's just saying this because I hurt her and I get where she's coming from, but she wouldn't want to leave me because I know how special we are together. If you truly believe that, then you wouldn't take her words as seriously and you would see them as tests, okay? Justin, with our time left, I was wondering if there's any last important things that you wanted to address with these guy watching this, if he was going to get on the call with you.
Man, to me, the biggest thing, if you're dealing with this, is realize that it did not start yesterday. It didn't start recently. In her mind, whether you agree with it or not, if I talk to her, she would tell me she's told you 1,000 times this was coming in her own way. You just simply didn't have the skills to understand what she actually meant. But this should not be a shock to you. If anything, you should be grateful for it. Because, and one of the things I tell guys all the time, so if she doesn't bring this up, how happy was your marriage anyway? I mean, clearly it couldn't have been that great. The disconnect is there. So if anything, you ought to look at this and be somewhat grateful that she's giving you an opportunity to actually man up and be who she needs to be. And you will be a better man for it.
It's like some guys hearing that, it's like, how can I be grateful for my wife trying to leave me or my marriage is falling apart? And I understand that sentiment, but look, in her feminine, she is showing you your weakness, okay, where you are coming short, because she knows your true capacity as a man, that you could be one that is just fully loving and present and caring and just in life, like, you know, within it and taking the most out of life. And when you fall short to that, that's when she gets upset. That's when she gets cold. That's when she gets stubborn. She's only changed because you have. And this is so hard for so many men to grasp, because they think that, like, my wife has changed. Like, I want her to be the way she used to be. And it's like, you're the one that changed first. And if you look in the mirror at yourself, you know that's true. You're the leader. And look, I understand how exhausting it could be to always be the one that has to lead. And sometimes you want to be the one that just can relax and have her, you know, bring you up. And I get it. I really do, man. But at the end of the day, you are a guy and you're in your masculine. You know, it's a gift that you have to be able to lead her out of these dark moods and to win her back. And it is an opportunity. And if you see it that way, you'll rise to the opportunity, right? If you see your wife as another challenge to overcome, to win her love back, it becomes a little fun even at times, right? Because if you have this defeatist mindset where it's, you know, outside of your control, she's serious this time, all the things we've been talking about, that's the guy that doesn't win her back, all right? Hopefully this video was as valuable as I expected it to be for you. If you want to set up a call with Justin or other marriage evaluators, go ahead and click the link down below, and I'll see you in the next one.